And now we regret to inform you that the famous Southern accent might be a thing of the past. New research by the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech shows the influx of Yankees, and there have been a lot of them heading south because of COVID. Well, all the Yankees are destroying one of the South's most identifiable features. Not their food yet, but their accents.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, Southern baby boomers evidently still have the famous Southern drawl. But starting with Gen X and certainly with millennials, now Gen Z, they speak with far less of an accent than their parents do. With that, Professor Jon Forrest of the University of Georgia is with us. Professor, thanks so much. Is it that simple now that just because there's so many more Yankees around without accents, then people just don't pick it up in the same way?
Well, it's not. That always happens with people moving into an area. Whenever you have a lot of different people with a lot of different accents, a lot of times things that are really tied to a region might not stick around and they shift over time. So with places like Atlanta growing as fast as they do in the South, you have a lot of people from a lot of places. So there are a lot of options on how to talk, and it tends to change over time.
All right, so you think about the South, right? You think about three things, at least I do. I think about food, I think about football, and you think about the Southern accent, right? How much of a cultural identity, shall we say, is tied to an accent?
That's a really great question. I think for some people, it really is tied to their accent, and for other people, it really isn't. Probably part of the reason some people in the South, like for younger folks, don't speak with a Southern accent is they don't really feel like that particular accent is super important to their identity. I've talked with a lot of people in interviews about this, and sometimes they will say, like, this is important. Sometimes they'll say, like, food traditions and other things you were bringing up, like biscuits, gravy, whatever, being polite. They'll say those things, but maybe not the accent as much. So it can be part of your identity, but maybe not for the younger folks we're seeing here.
Interesting. I'm thinking as things go, right, you know, and I know that the South has a particular dislike of us Yankees coming down there and ruining things. That UGA, for example, the mascot at UGA, will not be replaced by a Labradoodle or anything like that anytime soon. But how much of this is just osmosis, right? More Northerners, less Southern accents in school, therefore kids just don't pick it up as much, versus people sort of saying, look, there's, for lack of a better term, some discrimination, at least a little bit of arrogance about those who have Southern accents and what that says about them and their abilities, and people trying to intentionally lose it.
So it's a little bit of both, right? Like when you're growing up, you're kind of forming what you want to be as a person. So when you hear a bunch of people around you, you kind of associate that with certain kinds of things. A lot of times when I interview with people, they'll tell me that, you know, if they do have a Southern accent, they may be considered to be uneducated or something like that, which is obviously a bad thing. But people, like, when they're growing up, they see this sort of thing. They understand that, like, hey, maybe people will evaluate me that way. That might affect whether or not they want to have a Southern accent or end up having one in adulthood.
Yeah, I almost think like Reese Witherspoon's character in Sweet Home Alabama, how when she moved to New York, she dropped the Southern accent and moved back, and all of a sudden it was back. Hey, Professor, it's good to see you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.